Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarvagurubhyo Namaha. So we start off always by remembering all our teachers. And we're again reading from Mumuksupadi by Pila Lokacharya with a commentary by Manavala Mahamunigal. And we are in the Charmasloka Prakaranam, which is the last section, which is about the Krishna Charmasloka, Bhagavad Gita 1866. And we have discussed the last time, we discussed the first quarter of the verse, Sarvadharmam Parityaja. And now we're on last time we discussed, I think, five different meanings for the word mam, but we haven't finished with the word mam yet. So we're going to continue with text 212. First of all, Manavala Mahamuni is posing a question. So let's have a look at the text and see what his question is. Well, so it's not really a question. It's a comment here. He reveals what is excluded by the fact that Mam refers to this incarnation, Vibhava Rupa of the Lord. Okay, so what does this mean? There are of course, according to Pancharatra, there are these 5 forms of God, and Paravyuha, Vibhava, Antayaman, and Archa. Okay, so the form of God that spoke this verse, the Krishna Charmasloka, is of course Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna is categorized as a Vibhava form of the Lord, right? So the para form is the original form in Sri Vaikuntham of Sriman Narayana. He expands Vasudeva, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. These are expansions called the Chaturvyuha. And the next expansion is the Paravyuha, Vibhava, are the different Vibhava incarnations. So Vibhava incarnations means like the different Das avatars and Leela avatars. Matsya Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha, Rama, Krishna. So Krishna is a Vibhava avatar. Then the other 2 types of expansions or avatars are the Paramatma, right? Paramatma that is within the heart of every living being. And then the last one is the Arch avatar, which is the deity form in the houses and the temples, that the form that we can see and most easily approach. So what he's saying here is that Pilakacharya reveals what is excluded by the fact that Mam refers to this incarnation, the Vibhava avatar, right? So text 212, this word excludes his para and vyuha forms and his status as the inner controller, antaryaman of gods, right? So what he's saying is when Krishna says surrender to me, he doesn't mean to surrender to the para form. He doesn't mean to surrender to the vyuha form. He doesn't mean to surrender to the antaryami form. He means to surrender to the vibhava form, right? To him standing there as he is. Since the Mam refers to himself, the one who incarnated as an object of vision, standing near as one who can be beseeched, this excludes his supreme para and evolutionary vyuha forms, which are impossible to see or approach because of their remoteness, right? So Krishna doesn't make it hard for us. He said, when he says surrender to me, he doesn't say surrender to that God those forms of God who are far away and inaccessible. So it also excludes the Lord's status as the inner controller or the antaryamin, the super soul. So even though the super soul is as close to the soul as possible, right, following the soul everywhere in the material world, it also excludes the Lord's status as the inner controller, antaryamin of the gods, Agni, Indra, etc., where he lacks any such exclusive form, though this Antayami form is indicated for those who are established in other upayas. Okay, what does that mean? So the Lord is here in this material world as super soul. He's not only within our heart. Okay, so through the process of jnana yoga or mystic or even Astanga yoga, we could worship the Lord within the heart, and we could surrender to the Lord within the heart. We could also worship different devatas, and we could worship the Lord within the heart of those devatas. This is a process that the Madhvas do. The Madhva Vaishnavas, they have all sorts of temples. They have Durga temples, they have Shiva temples, they have all sorts of temples that they worship at. And when you ask them, why are you worshiping these devatas? Since you believe that, since your doctrine is also that Sriman Narayana is the supreme, why don't you worship only Sriman Narayana or Krishna? Right? They say, well, we are worshiping Sriman Narayana, but we can worship him as the Antaryaman in these other devatas. So either the Antaryaman in our own heart or the Antaryaman in the heart of a devata, right, can also be worshipped. Right. But here, Hilalokacharya is saying that the Krishna Charma Sloka doesn't indicate that we should surrender to that Antaryaman. Right? And there's a reason for that. So let's get into that. So he reveals a special meaning which results from telling Arjuna to resort to him after having relinquished all dharmas. He who took birth in order to establish dharma by saying relinquish all dharmas, which is, sounds contradictory. He's trying to establish dharma, what is the highest form of religiosity, by saying give up all dharmas and resort only to me and surrender only to me. Declares that the actual shakshat dharma is himself alone. He is the greatest dharma, right? He is the greatest form of religiosity. He's like the personal form of religiosity or dharma. In order to establish dharma, I am born in each yuga. This is a quotation from Bhagavad Gita. Thus, Krishna declares that he was born in order to establish dharma. When he says that in order to attain himself, one must relinquish all dharmas, which are established in the Shastra as sadhanas. Sadhanas means processes, or we also use the word upayas, right? Sadhanas means things that we can do to attain moksha, right? Paths of self-effort, these different other upayas or means, right? To moksha, sarvadhamma parityajya, right? So we've already covered that. That's the first quarter of the sloka. Establishes that in the Shastras, he establishes these other dharmas, like in Bhagavad Gita, he establishes karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga. So the actual shakshat dharma, shakshat means shakshat means obvious. It means self-seen, right? Shakshat, self-established. Which is to be established, as it is said, Krishna, the eternal Dharma, and this is also a quotation here, that is, the Lord himself is the eternal Dharma. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the footnotes here. In 212, there was a footnote, and it says here in the footnote, that Sri Vaishnava doctrine recognizes 5 forms in which the Lord manifests himself. The supreme form, para, the four vyuhas from the Pancharatra evolutionary cosmology, the Antaryaman, or the inner controller of all sentient souls from Vedanta, the Vibhavas, or avatars, right, and the Archavatar, means the deity form. The Lord as he dwells in the temple image, the temple or the house deity. The Tangalayacharys criticize the former 3. So what are the former 3 again? Para, Vyuha, and Vibhava. Para, Vyuha, and Vibhava. Why do we criticize the Para, Vyuha? Sorry, there's a Para, Vyuha, and Antaryami. Para, Vyuha, and Antaryami. as being too remote and inaccessible to have any salvific importance. Right. So specifically the Tanacharya Sampradaya, the Tengalais are saying the Lord is too far off in his para forms, in his vyuha forms. He's too remote. And even the Antaryami is unreachable except through very, very difficult forms of yoga. So in Srivachana Bhushana 39, Pilalokacharya's 5 water analogy compares a man thirsting for water and a soul thirsting for salvation. Okay, so this is the analogy given. The soul is seeking salvation like a man in the desert who's thirsty and who's seeking water. So there are different sources of water, and Pilalokacharya explains this in Srivachana Bhushana, that the Antaryamin is like the water under the ground. So the super soul, the soul within the body, the Paramatman or Antaryamin, right, is like water in the set that is kept under the ground. When there's water under the ground in the water table, we have to find it by digging a well. So digging a well takes a lot of effort, right? To dig a well, to get down to the water. The person who's thirsty doesn't have a lot of energy, perhaps, or doesn't have a lot of time who's dying of thirst, right? To dig the well. So it may be difficult for him to get the water if you tell him dig a well, right? See somebody dying of thirst in the desert, you don't tell him, well, why don't you just try digging a well? There's water somewhere there, so just try digging a well. That's not a very good solution. Similarly, the water, the para form, or the original personality of Godhead, Sriman Narayana in Vaikuntha, is like the water surrounding the world egg. So we have what's called the Garbhadakshay or even the Karanadakshay Vishnu. There is the water surrounding the universe or the water inside the universe. These waters are also very far off. So difficult to get to that water. We could also say the analogy could be like a cloud and clouds in the sky. So the para and vyuha forms of the Lord are just like clouds of water in the sky. There may be thousands of tons of water in the cloud floating above your head, but if you're thirsty, that doesn't help you quench your thirst because the water is inaccessible. It's up in the sky, unless you can bring it down in some way. Okay, so now they say that here he's saying the water in the footnote here, saying that his actual analogy is that the para form is like water surrounding the world egg. So the world, or not sure if he means the world or the universe here, the universe, but anyway, there's water around there. That's like the para form. The vyuha form is like the milk in the Milky Ocean. Again, very far off the Milky Ocean from where we are. The vibhavas, or the different incarnations of God, right, that come at specific times. Remember, what is the definition of an avatar given in Bhagavad Gita, right? Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya chiduskritam, dharma samstapanataya, sambhavami yuke. So paritranaya sadhunam, I come to protect my devotees. I come to annihilate the miscreants, the bad persons, right? The non-devotees, right? Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya chiduskritam. Dharma samstapana. Samstapana means to establish. I come to establish dharma. Here, dharma is being equated with the most essential dharma is the Lord himself, right? So he comes to establish dharma, right? Or religiosity, the actual means to liberation, the different upayas, the different processes of the different processes of self-effort that the souls can take to, like karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga, but also property by just coming himself. But the vibhava antaryamin, the most important part that we have to remember in that particular definition of the avatar is sambhavami yuge. Sambhavami. Bhavami means I am. I manifest myself. Bhavami. Right? It's very simple, Sanskrit, right? Bhavami, I become. Sambhavami means I manifest myself, right? So yuge means in this yuga or that yuga. So in yuga after yuga, age after age, I come. Sambhavami yuge, I come age after age. Okay, well, what about in between the times when you come? What happens then? Then he's not available. So Krishna, if he was present today, right, in his avatar form, in his Vibhava avatar form, then we could go and we could surrender directly to Krishna, right? Krishna could say, surrender to me, we would be there and we would just surrender to Krishna. But Krishna came 5,000 years ago, or or his different avatars came, at different times, and therefore the Vibhava is in this analogy of different types of water that Pila Lokacharya uses in Srivachana Bhushana. He compares the Vibhava avatars, or the different Leela avatars that come in different ages, to be like seasonal floods. Okay, so I know here in Hawaii what we have is a thing called a flash flood. So it'll rain on the mountains, and the stream beds may seem to be dry. So you might be walking or driving along the road, and you might cross a stream bed in Hawaii, and it's dry, right? But all of a sudden, somewhere far away, it's raining. It's not raining even where you are, but it's raining somewhere far away, and all of a sudden, there's a flash flood. All of a sudden, a whole lot of water comes down the stream bed and washes you away, or washes your car away, like that. That's called a flash flood. So the flash flood occurs at a certain time in a certain place. So the incarnation of Krishna appeared at a certain time in a certain place. We know this because we read in the scriptures. We read in the Bhagavatam how Krishna was born in Mathura at a certain time in a certain place. He appeared in this world for a certain time, and then he left this world. So in that Vibhava form. So unless you were around at that time, unless you were actually there, right? Similarly, unless you're at the stream when the stream bed is flooded, otherwise there's no water there. There's no water in that stream. It's a flash flood. It comes and goes, and unless you can catch it, unless you can be there at the right time, you can't take advantage of that water. So the thirsty man, he can't take advantage of a flash flood, because who knows when the flash flood is going to come. Right? So even if it's stated in the scriptures when the Lord will come, that he'll come at this time, at this time, at this time, I can't wait around another so many thousands of years to wait until Krishna again returns in that particular incarnation. So the Vibhava avatar is also not reliable to surrender to today, right here and right now. He's not the shakshat dharma. He's not the dharma that we can rely on today, right in front of us. So, but the Archa avatar, the deity that's in our puja rooms or in our homes and in our temples, like that, is right in front of us. Is standing there, right? It is like the standing pools in these rivers. So sometimes we have these standing pools of water which are just there, like that. So like an oasis in the desert for a thirsty man. So that form of water can immediately be taken advantage of by the thirsty man in the desert. If you have water right in front of you, or water in the palm of your hand, you can immediately sip it and quench your thirst. So Manavala Mahamuni explains that the three forms of water, are of no use to the thirsty man because they're too remote. What are they again? Like the clouds, like the which means like the para and vyuha forms, they're too far away. What's a little bit closer to us is the super soul, the Paramatma, which is like the water in the earth, which we can perform the process of mystic yoga, which is a very difficult process of meditation, which is like digging a well, and we can get that water. Otherwise, we can wait around for a Viva avatar or Leela avatar of the Lord to show up, right? Or we can simply take advantage of the fact that we have the deity in the temple or the deity in our house, and we can surrender to the deity form of the Lord in our house. So the seasonal river flows with water only at certain times, but a deep pool in such a river is available at all time. In the same way, the three forms of the Lord are inaccessible to one who desires salvation. The Lord's avatars are available only rarely, but the Archa avatar, or the deity form, right, is constantly accessible and receptive to those who seek protection, right? So that was footnote 31. Now continuing on, we discussed also footnote 32, where Krishna says, in order to establish Dharma, I am born in each yuga, right? Sambhavami yuge, right? Dharma samstapanarthaya, sambhavami yuge. So that is a quotation from Bhagavad Gita, as I said, 4.8. And then we have another quotation given here, Krishna, the eternal Dharma. Krishna is the eternal Dharma, and that's a quotation from the Mahabharata 386:22. So now let's have a look and see what these concepts and how they're understood by P.B. Anangacharya in his Mumuksupadi Sarata Dipika. Okay, so now the meaning of Mam is explained. So we already discussed the first part of this, where the Lord says, we'll just recap. The Lord says Mam, referring to himself, who is focused on protecting everyone, who can be made to do pleasing things for his devotees, who looks for approval by his devotees, who takes his devotees' sins as pleasing. We discussed all this last time, right? Acts so they don't have to be afraid, who is the refuge for his devotees, who never gives up his devotees, even if Pariyapirati means the goddess Mahalakshmi, right? So remember we discussed this. Even if Mahalakshmi rejects us, then somehow or other the Lord is going to accept us. Who normally mediates for them, were to point out their sins and to ask that they be rejected, and stands alone and protects them. So, sin, which will not happen, that's only a theoretical idea. Since he has taken the avatar in this world and is present in a form that is worshipable by everyone, Vibhava, referred to himself as Mam, it rejects the para and vyuha forms, right? So the first thing is we have to reject the para and vyuha forms as being inaccessible. The form in Vaikuntha and the form of the Chatuvyuha, Vasudeva Sankarshana Pradyumna, inaccessible. So which are not visible, being remote in space, and the Antaryaman form, being inside the devas like Agni and Indra, right, and being worshipped by those using other means. So people who are performing this, sometimes people who are performing this Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, they will even worship other. They will if they're doing the Jnana Yoga or Mystic Yoga, then Kundalini Yoga, they might be worshiping the super soul within the heart, or they're worshiping the super soul within the heart of other devatas like Ganesh and Shiva and Durga, like that, as part of their Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, right? So, so then he also shows the difference in this form from them. Continuing, as Lord, so here he mentions Dharma Samstapanata, which is exactly Sambhavami, which is directly from Bhagavad Gita. As Lord Krishna, he stated that he is born to establish the dharmas. Now he's stating here that for moksha, that the dharmas, which are the essence of the shastras, should be given up, and that the Chaitanya should surrender to him. Right. So what's the point of the Tenacharya Sampradaya, of the Tengalaya Acharyas, the southern school of Sri Vaishnavism? The teachers from that school, their point is here, when Lord Krishna says Mam, he doesn't mean that you should surrender to these other forms, right? Because of their difficulty, the difficulty of approaching them. So that's why Krishna says to give up Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, which may involve the worship of the Antaryamin or the super soul, the Paramatma, in the other devatas like Ganesh and Shiva and Agni and Indra, whatever it says, right? or even the one within your heart, the super soul within your heart, because these are very difficult to approach. Even we have to understand that it will be difficult to approach the Vibhava avatar of Krishna, to wait again for Krishna to appear in another cycle, to appear again and to preach the Bhagavad Gita. To wait that long, that will be very difficult. We have a desire to attain liberation now itself in this lifetime, and therefore we can't wait for that long. So we have to approach a form of the Lord which is accessible to us, most accessible right in front of us, and that is the Archa Avatar, the deity in the temple or the deity in our house. So now he's stating that moksha, that for moksha, the dharmas, which are the essence of the Shastras, should be given up and the Chaitanya should surrender to him. Right, so but how to surrender to him? When Krishna says mom, we have to think. There are, we could say, well, the para is also Krishna, the Vyuha is also Krishna, the Antaryama is also Krishna. So when Krishna says to surrender to me, why not surrender to the para? Why not surrender to the Vyuha? Why not surrender to the Antaryama, the super soul? Right? It's because of these difficulties, and this is the purport by the acharyas of the Southern School, that therefore what he's not saying is to do it in a difficult way. He's saying surrender to me here and now, to Arjuna, right? Because Krishna's there in his Leela avatar. But to everybody else, the instruction is to surrender to Krishna in the most accessible way. And the most accessible way is the Archa avatar in the temple or in the house. So this leads to a special meaning. That is, those are not truly dharmas. He himself is truly the dharma. So this is the point. Krishna himself is the upaya. The Supreme Lord Sriman Narayana is the upaya himself. He is the means to liberation and nothing else. So these other means, which involve approaching other forms of the Lord, right? Well, somebody could say, well, okay, the means to liberation is to surrender to the Lord. So if I surrender to the super soul, or if I surrender to the Vyuha or the Vibhava form of the Lord, why not? The Pancharatra says that these are all bona fide forms of the Lord. So why can't I surrender to the para form or the Vyuha form? Something like that. You can, through the processes of very difficult karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga. You can do that. But those are not truly, those are considered to be upayas, especially by the northern school of Sri Vaishnavism. But here they're rejected. Those are rejected as real upayas by the southern school acharyas because they're not practical. They're not practical because they involve self-effort. And as soon as we have self-effort, we have that tinge of false ego, which is against the nature of the soul. The pure nature of the soul is without ego, without ahankar and mamakar, right? Inus and minus, is to simply accept the Lord as the one, as the upaya, as the actual means, and not ourselves, anything that we can do as the means. Okay. So I think that's pretty clear. Like that. So now with this, the greatness of this means as compared to the other means that are to be given up is told. What is that greatness? Those dharmas have to be performed by the Chaitanya, those other dharmas, right? Okay, so let's see. Somebody's got it saying something in the chat. Yes, bhakti yoga involves also archana. That's part of bhakti. But we have Shravana, Kirtanas, Vishnu Smart. There's different types, there's different forms of bhakti, right? Is Archana based and centered on the Archana Vigraha? Yes, that's true. That's true. That is also true, right? So I don't have a problem with people who are we don't have a problem with Archana. We don't have a problem with worshiping the deity as a form of bhakti yoga. But the problem with bhakti yoga is, again, self-effort is involved, right? And so therefore it becomes very difficult. One has to be qualified. If there's a path which is dependent upon my effort, then first of all, I have to find myself a proper teacher. The teacher has to be properly qualified. The student has to be properly qualified, right? The qualifications for Bhakti Yoga, according to Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, may be greater than those in other Sampradayas, right? They may point to the scriptural verses saying that in order to perform these different forms of bhakti, one has to be a Trivarnika male or whatever it is. But even if we give up that idea that one has to be in a particular gender and caste to perform bhakti yoga, there still is a lot of self-effort which is involved. Self-effort involved means one has to learn properly from a properly qualified teacher. One has to be qualified oneself. And not only one has to be potentially qualified and his teacher qualified, but he has to actually perform that process of a lot of self-effort. Now, we're not saying that Sri Vaishnavas who are prapanas, who are refugees, who have sought shelter, who've surrendered to the Lord and accepted the Lord as the process to liberation. We're not saying that they don't do deity worship, that they don't put out efforts to do deity worship. They do, but they're not doing it as an upaya, as a means to liberation, right? They may do acts of bhakti, but the person who is a bhakti yogi, that's the difference between a bhakti yogi and a person who is doing property, right? A devotee and a refugee. The devotee has to have devotion. He has to perform devotional acts, and therefore he has to be qualified to perform those acts. If he doesn't perform those acts properly, if he makes some offense, if he commits some seva aparad, then he has to suffer the reaction of that. Whereas a prapana may perform devotional acts like that, but the acts that he performs, whether they're performed perfectly or not perfectly, it doesn't really matter, because whether he's qualified or not qualified doesn't really matter, because he's not accepting the Lord, even in the Archavatar form or the deity form. He's not accepting the Lord as he's not accepting that his service to the Lord is the means of his liberation, his effort. He's accepting the Lord, the Lord as being himself the means. So the Lord, he depends completely and wholly and 100% on the Lord for the result, and not his own qualifications. So those dharmas have to be performed by the Chaitanya, or the living being. Therefore, they realize their nature only through the Chaitanya's efforts, right? The soul's efforts. As this means is eternal, it is already accomplished. They are of the form of knowledge and effort. This one is distinguished and of supreme power, because they are due to the effort of the Chaitanya. They are fraught with danger. The danger. What is the danger? The danger is he's not qualified for them. The danger is they're incomplete when he does them. That he doesn't complete them, and the danger is that he doesn't put enough effort in them to do them properly. So there has to be qualification. There has to be sufficient effort, and they have to be done to completion. Completion means that bhakti yoga has to be done to completion. Sometimes you'll talk to other Vaishnavas, and they'll talk about a long system of different levels of achievement in bhakti yoga that people, from this to ashakti, to ruchi, to prema, to all these different levels like that. So you say, well, that person is on this level, he has to get to the next level. Maybe this life he'll never get to that level. Maybe it'll take him hundreds of lives to get to that level, and then he'll get to the next level. We have, in the scripture, for instance, the story of Maharaj Bharata in the Bhagavatam, or even Ajamin. In the Bhagavatam, there was a king, and he was on a very high level of bhakti. He was meditating, and he was a very great devotee, but he was on a very great level after performing a lot of efforts. But he became attached to a deer, and therefore he thought of the deer at the time of death, and again he was reborn as a deer. And in his third life, again he got a human form of life, and he was able to continue on with his devotion. And he had to go to great lengths to not be involved with anything, and to be attracted by a deer or by anything else that he should finish up his process of bhakti. So it took him 3 lives, basically. Ajamil, the same sort of thing. Ajamil was trained up when he was young. He went to Gurukula and he studied scriptures and he studied the path of Vaishnavism and everything like that. But he forgot it. He left it. And because he left it sometime, he was attracted by sense gratification. He got married and he completely forgot about everything else. That just at the time of death, he remembered the name of his son, which happened to be Narayan. He named his son Narayan, and therefore the Vishnu Dutas came, but they didn't immediately take him to liberation, to Vaikuntha. He had to come back and he had to continue until he became perfect. So in the scriptures are full of examples of people who took to karma yoga, jnana yoga, and especially bhakti yoga, and it took them a long time to perfect that. And because it took them a long time to perfect that, even many lifetimes, like that is not considered to be a very important dharma, according to the Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas. That is a, we can say it's a dharma. Vedanta Deshika calls these dharmas, and he says, yes, you can perform those things if you're qualified, if you have the patience, and if you have the skill and the effort to perform them. Yes, you can perform them like that. Whereas the Tengalai Acharyas reject them altogether. They reject them altogether because they say, okay, let's say you have the proper teacher who's qualified to teach you how to do these other paths of effort. Let's say you're qualified, right? And then let's say you have the will to do it, right? And then you try and put in the effort to do it, right? You put in the effort to do it. Even you put in the effort to do it and you do it perfectly, right? Then yes, then you're assured also by Krishna, if you do it perfectly and you put in the proper effort and you're qualified and you've been taught by a qualified teacher, then sure, it can work. You can go to liberation, but it still involves that tinge of ahankara and mamakara. It still involves a little bit of ego to think that you are the one through your efforts who can cause God to give you liberation. Right? This is called. There's two types of grace or mercy that God can show. Right? So we have the cooperative grace, and we have which is called sahitika kripa, and then we have nirhetika kripa, the causeless grace or the irresistible grace. So the causeless grace is where God Himself simply gives liberation to the person but the person doesn't make any effort at all. The person simply realizes, I am a servant of God. I'm a slave of God. I'm the property of God. That's what I am. That's my nature. And therefore, I can't do anything. The Lord will do everything through me. We were discussing this in Tattvatraya, which we were discussing that the person has to understand that there are 5 causes of action. For an action to be completed, there's 5 causes, and one of them is the Lord. So without the Lord, not a blade of grass moves. So even all of these upayas, these paths of self-effort of karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga cannot be achieved without the Lord. So you've got these 2 paths. So people will say, okay, why don't you do karma yoga? Why don't you do jnana yoga? Why don't you do bhakti yoga? Right. They involve 2 things. At least 2 things. They involve our effort and the Lord's mercy. That is what's called cooperative grace, right? Even though our effort may be minute or minuscule compared to the Lord's effort, still, those paths require our effort. Whereas the other path of causeless grace, of irresistible grace, does not require our effort whatsoever. It simply requires our understanding. It requires our momentary realization that we are the property of the Lord. That's all, which is our eternal constitutional position. So that's all it requires. So anyway, so it says here, because they are due to the effort of the Chaitanya, they're fraught with danger. So there is a possibility of failure in karma yoga, in jnana yoga, even in bhakti yoga. There's a possibility of failure, right? So that means that there's danger. They're not sure. They're not 100% sure. Property is 100% fail-safe. 100% fail-safe. Why? Because we are approaching the Lord, we're surrendering to the Lord. The Lord will never, as we just discussed, the Lord will never abandon us, even if Mahalakshmi points out our sins, which she doesn't, because we'll always approach the Lord through Mahalakshmi, through a mediator, and the mediator being the Acharya and Mahalakshmi, that we can approach through the mediator, and the mediator assures us of complete success, that the Lord will accept us. And even then, even if the mediator, like Mahalakshmi, as it was said in the previous section, even if Mahalakshmi were to somehow say, look, point out our sins, which she's not going to, right? Because she's our supreme mother, she's the mother of the universe. She's not going to do that. Her compassion to the souls is to not point out our faults, but to point out our virtues to the Lord, right? To point out our need to be saved to the Lord. And so therefore, with these two people working for us, with Mahalakshmi, the Acharya Mahalakshmi and the Supreme Lord, with these two mediators and with the Supreme Lord working for us, the Supreme Lord, they are fully qualified. The Supreme Lord is fully qualified to give us liberation, and therefore he can't fail. If it's up to God, he can't fail. If it's up to us, there's a possibility of failure. That's the point. And that's the point that the Tengalites are pushing forward. You have these two systems, the system of effort and the system of no effort. If you're relying on the system of effort, then you have to make the effort. If you fail, if your effort fails, then the whole thing fails, because it's relying on not only God, but it's also relying on you. Whereas the other path doesn't rely on you at all, does not rely on you at all. You are God's property. You're God's slave. You're God's servant. That's what you are. He knows that. He always knows that. And he will never fail. He doesn't fail. So you may fail, right, in these other paths, because these other paths require you to do something. You're not required to do anything in this path. The Lord is going to do everything. He is totally 100% qualified, and he never fails. So therefore, that path is better because it's sure. It's a 100% sure path, and it's safe also because the person who's performing it is totally qualified, which is the Lord, like that. We cannot say the same for ourselves. So since it's fraught with danger, since this is an accomplished means, it's spoken of as an accomplished means. There's no danger. We talk about surrender to the Lord. We talk about liberation being assured to that person who performs property, who surrenders to the Lord, who realizes that he's the servant, the property, the slave of the Lord. There's no danger there because that realization, even if it's momentary, it doesn't require us even to have continued realization of that. The Lord's looking for an excuse to reclaim his property, to reclaim his servant, his slave, like that. Those means are not appropriate to the nature of the Chaitanya. The real absolute nature of the Chaitanya is to be the property of the Lord, is to be the slave and servant of the Lord. So therefore, it's not appropriate for a slave or a servant or for your property to involve. If I have a cell phone, If I lose my cell phone doesn't initiate its own rescue, its own coming back to me. It doesn't find itself and return itself to me. I don't have to think, well, when is my cell phone going to come back to me? Like that. No, I'm the one who has to go find the cell phone, pick it up, and retrieve it from wherever it's lost. So the Lord has to find us and protect us and retrieve us, like that. He's the controller. He's a supporter. He's the provider, right? He's the substratum of us. He's the soul within our soul. So he is in charge. He is the owner of the soul. So he has to reclaim his property. He has to do that. That's his effort, and his effort never fails, like that. Whereas the effort of a servant or a slave or a piece of property to regain the ownership of the person who owns them or controls them, right, may fail. So since this is already, it's considered accomplished, an accomplished means. This cell phone belongs to me. It's already belongs to me. So there's no point in saying I have to claim it as mine. It's mine. It is mine, right? So I know it's mine. It knows that it belongs to me, right? Right. Although the cell phone is inanimate and insentient, but the soul is sentient, and the soul should know that it belongs to the Lord. Those means are not appropriate to the nature of the Chaitana, the nature of the property, to the nature of the slave, to the nature of the servant. So this one is appropriate. This one is appropriate, or property, or thinking of the Lord as the only means. That's appropriate. They are dependent on each other. This is independent of anything. So those upayas are dependent. They're dependent on the effort of the individual, right? Karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga are dependent on the effort of the individual, whereas property is not dependent on the effort of the individual at all. We're depending only on the Lord. Since the other means are due to the effort of the Chaitana, they are attached to him for their existence, as they do not have the knowledge of what they need to do for the Chaitana, nor do they have the power to do it. They are dependent on the Lord to complete their task. But this means is opposite. This means, meaning property, is opposite to those means. Opposite to those means. It is completely different. Sometimes people think, oh, the Sri Vaishnavas, that they're, Krishna talks about karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. They talk about property. Well, property is just another path. It's just another path. It's just exactly like the other paths. No, it's completely different. It's completely opposite of the other paths. All the other paths involve effort. All the other paths involve our qualification and our effort. Property doesn't. Not at all. But this means is opposite to those means. Property is opposite to those means. It is complete and full of power. Therefore, it is not dependent on anything. Now, again, the classic example is of bhakti yoga, or karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, right? The cooperative grace is the baby monkey trying to hang on to the mother, and the mother going from tree to tree. The baby needs to go from tree to tree with the mother, needs to go with the mother. But if the baby can't hang on to the back of the mother, the baby will fall off. So it's only the effort of the baby that keeps him safe with the mother. If the baby gives up its small effort, it's not a huge effort. The mother is making a huge effort. God is making a huge effort, even in bhakti yoga, karma yoga, and jnana yoga, right? The mother monkey is going from tree to tree. That is a lot more effort than just simply hanging onto the back. But the baby still has to hang on to the back. If the baby doesn't hang on to the back, the baby falls down. It's all useless. So there's danger. The baby monkey is in danger, is in real danger of falling off. However, the mother cat comes and picks up the kitten in her mouth, picks up the kitten in her mouth, and just takes the kitten to safety. There's no effort by the kitten. The kitten doesn't do anything. Even the kitten rebels against the mother and doesn't want to be taken to safety. Right? Initially, the kitten may want, of course, the kitten ultimately wants to be saved by the mother. The kitten loves the mother loves the kitten, the mother cat. But there may be a baby who's, a baby kitten who's being a little bit rebellious against the mother. Still, the mother can pick it up and take it. Again, the example of the drowning man. A person who is drowning, a person who's very expert at saving a drowning person, can even save a person who's hysterical. Even the person who's fighting against you, they're hysterical means that they're fighting you. They're fighting the person who's trying to save them. God is trying to save us, and we're fighting against him. Right? We're fighting against him. All we have to do is surrender, give up our hysteria in this material world, and we'll be saved. Hysterically trying to grab onto the life rafts of karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga is not going to save us. And that's what the Tengalaya Acharyas are saying. Give up being hysterical and trying to save yourself. The lifeguard is on the way. The lifeguard will save you. Just surrender to the lifeguard and let him go limp and go passive, and he will take you. So there's active surrender and passive surrender. There's cooperative grace, and there's causeless grace. The path of property, according to the Tengalai Sri Vaishnava Acharyas of the Southern School, is the path of total surrender, total grace, like that. Not even an iota of dependence on our own selves or anything else. Only dependence totally on the Lord. The Lord is the means, totally the means. So let's go back to the main text. So continuing on. He states what this means. Krishna is the eternal Dharma. Krishna is the actual Dharma himself. So in 2.14, he says, this states his superiority over the relinquished sadhanas. The relinquished sadhanas means give up those other. When Krishna says sarva dharma paritaja, he means give up these other so-called dharmas, these paths of self-effort, right? And he's therefore saying that superior to these dharmas which are given up, right? So first is explained what has to be given up. Second is explained what has to be accepted. So what has to be given up is these dharmas: karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. Excuse me. What has to be accepted is Mam, is Krishna. And what form of Krishna has to be accepted? Not the para form, not the vyuha form, not the antaryami form. Again, because these are forms. Yes, they're forms, and we can accept them, right? But these forms, in order to contact these forms, right, we have to have great effort because they're far away, right? Even the Vibhava avatar, when Krishna says, well, what we can say, why don't we just do it exactly the way Arjuna did it? Because we're not Arjuna, we're not sitting there right in front of Lord Krishna. Arjuna could surrender to Krishna directly because Krishna was in front of him. But Krishna's not directly in front of us as the Leela avatar of Krishna. We haven't taken birth at that time during that flash flood of the Ajna avatar, of the Leela avatar of Krishna. And so therefore we can't directly surrender to him like that. So what we can do is we can go to the temple and we can see the deity form, or we can go into our puja room in the house and we can surrender to the deity form or the shalagram there in the house, and we can have direct shakshatkara, right? Direct vision of the Lord and acceptance and surrender to the Lord, and accepting him as the only sadhana, as the only means of the upaya, the only means to liberation. So this states his superiority over the relinquished sadhanas. This statement declares the superiority of this sadhana as compared to the previously relinquished sadhanas. He explains what that is. So to text 215, that is, this sadhana, right, is accomplished siddha. So what we call it siddhopaya. Siddhopaya. It's the accomplished siddha. The siddha means perfection. It's the perfect upaya. Siddhopaya, right? Siddhopaya means the perfect upaya. It's the perfect means. It's the perfect means, whereas these other means are imperfect. That is, this sadhana, meaning accepting the Lord as our only means to liberation. This is the siddhopaya. This is the perfected means. Supremely cognizant, paramachetana, all-powerful, sarva shakti, free from danger, nirapaya, rightful and proper, prapta, and without need of other aids, saha yantara nirapeksha, right? So for this reason, property, or accepting the Lord as the only means, right, is the best way. It's the best way. And what are the reasons again? Because it is already accomplished. It's already perfect, right? Perfect. It's the perfect. It's already accomplished. Why? Because if the Lord wants to save you, that's already a done deal. It's finished. He's done it. Supremely cognizant. The Supreme knows everything. So therefore, if there's any problems that may occur in this, he knows about it. He's all powerful. Therefore, he can overcome any problems or any lack of anything in this method. Free from danger. It's free from danger because it's already accomplished, and therefore there's no danger of it failing, right? It's right and proper. It's right and proper because it's also mentioned by Krishna in the scriptures. So it's not against the scriptures. It's just an accepted way, right? It's his way, so therefore it's right and proper, and without need of other aids. So there is actually no other aid. We can say that the mediatorship of the Acharya and Mahalakshmi are included as part of that, right? So, but we don't really call them other aids, right? They're part of the process. Thus, the excellence of this sadhana, the Lord Himself is this sadhana, right? In comparison to the previously relinquished sadhanas, is one. It's an accomplished siddha. It's accomplished siddha because he is the eternal dharma and does not depend on human action to be achieved. So if it depends on us, it's not done. It's not accomplished. But if it depends on him, we can consider it accomplished already. Number two, he's supremely cognizant because he's all-knowing, as stated in the text, such as he is all-knowing, all-wise, and this quotation is from Mundaka Upanishad 119. And three, all-powerful, as it is said, his innate power is known to be of a varied nature and supreme, knowledge, strength, and action. This is also a quotation from Swetasvatara Upanishad 6.8. So he backs up all these statements by Upanishadic statements here. So then number four, without danger, for since he is already accomplished entity, there is no opportunity for any risky event to intervene, as there would be in the case of something which the Chaitanya has to do. If we have to do it, there's a possibility, even if we're trained up by a qualified acharya, even if we're fully qualified, even if we put in all the efforts, there's a possibility for some other thing to screw up the whole thing at the last minute, but not with the Lord, right? So there's a possibility of failure, still a possibility if it's up to us, right? So number five, rightful and proper, prapta, since he will never be inappropriate for the essential nature of the soul who's dependent on him. So these other ways are not rightful and proper according to the southern school of Sri Vaishnavism. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga as means to liberation, according to the Sri Vaishnava acharyas of the southern school, are not quite as proper. They're not. Vedanta Deshika says they're also proper means. If you want to do them, you can do them like that if you're qualified for them and if you're willing to take the lifetimes that they may take to complete perfectly, right? Then you can do them. But the Tengalaya acharyas say they're not, we don't consider them to be fully 100% proper, right? Therefore, we consider that they have to be given up because they involve something which is against the essential nature of the soul, which means doing something on our own, right? The slave can never do anything that the master doesn't order him to do, that the master doesn't want him to do, right? So not that God doesn't want us to perform these other dharmas. He tells us we can perform these dharmas, but we can only perform these dharmas if we have that tinge of ahankara, that we think that we can actually do something. When we realize that we can't, that our essential nature is that we are his total slave, then we simply surrender to that, or that we're his property. We simply surrender to that, and that's everything's already accomplished after that. So without the need for other aids, because of his aforementioned qualities of supreme cognizance, etc. So he gives the reasons for the Lord's lack of need for other aids by the next three sentences. So let's see what Pilalakacharya, P.B. Anangacharya says in the other text about this. So we already went through this part. Okay, so it looks like this is going to be okay. So then, in the term "mam," all the qualities of the Lord that the Chaitanya needs, that the soul needs, are present. They are vatsalyam, swamitvam, socialium, and solabium. Vatsalyam shines in the fact that he taught all the great meanings to Arjuna, and he got caught in adharmic knowledge and failed his dharmic duty, right? So Lord Krishna spoke to Arjuna. He explained to him why his thinking, Arjuna's thinking, was actually adharma. Arjuna was thinking not to fight. And Krishna was explaining to him, no, you have to fight. It's your dharma to fight. He was thinking it's not dharma to fight because if I fight, I'm killing all these men the women will be unprotected. They're not only that, but they're my family members and my friends and my teachers. So this is not dharma. But actually, the dharma which Krishna explained to him to perform was to simply accept what Krishna wanted. Krishna wanted it to happen. He wanted the whole thing to happen. And Krishna, in fact, told him, all these people are already dead. I have decided it's going to happen like that. And so either you come as part of my plan or you don't, like that. So we are the slaves of the Lord. Whatever he says, we have to do that. So Arjuna ultimately surrendered to him. So Vatsalya was shown by the Lord. Swamitvam shines in the fact that he not only did he explain his paratvam, his supremacy, right, to Arjuna, but he also allowed Arjuna to see it in the 10th and 11th chapters, right? In the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he shows the universal form to Arjuna, so Arjuna can actually see that he's supreme with his own eyes, and he also explains all the different glories of himself in the 11th chapter. So in the 10th and 11th chapters, we read in the Bhagavad Gita, we see the universal form and the glories of the Lord. So not only does he explain this, but he actually shows it to Arjuna, and Arjuna acknowledges that he understands it. Arjuna says, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavam, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam. He says, you are God, Krishna. I now realize that you're God, right? For a minute there, I forgot that you're God, or I didn't recognize that you're God. I thought that you're just my chauffeur, my charioteer. I thought that you were just my friend, that we used to sit on the bed together and laugh, but now I realize actually that you're God, and therefore I'm taking it all very seriously, and therefore I'm going to surrender it to you. So then Shoshiliam shines in the fact that he mixed with Arjuna in such a fashion that Arjuna could call out, hey Krishna, hey Yadava, right? This is another place where Arjuna calls him his friend. So Shoshiliam is he's very much close to Arjuna and able to be very intimate with Arjuna. Solabhya shines in the fact that he made his divine body, which was not seen by mortal eyes, visible to Arjuna. He made his divine body, which is not. So he showed his universal form. He showed his four-handed form even on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So let's see that this part in the other text. So where were we up to? Right. Text 216, the other upayas, since they are things that need to be accomplished, depend upon the Chaitanya to complete them. Since these upayas, right, the Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, are insentient and powerless, right? So Karma Yoga itself is insentient. And therefore, he says here, powerless by itself. Without somebody to perform it, Karma Yoga just sits there on the pages of the scriptures, right? Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, right? And they depend on the Lord to accomplish their results, Karya Siddhi. So they actually depend upon the Lord to get their results. So what did I say? All of these things, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, right, are actions, and they have to be they are, because they're actions. There are these 5 aspects to the action. One of them is the effort of the person, the soul, the karta, the doer, and also the action of the super soul or the Supreme Lord, right, to accomplish these things. So these other ones also involve the accomplishment of the Lord. You can't do anything in Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga without the Lord agreeing to that or allowing that to happen, right? And therefore, they also involve the accomplishment of the Lord. The Lord has to help you do those things. So why is it why is it better that you have these two systems? Okay, one system is where you put in effort, the Lord also puts in effort. And the other system is where the Lord only puts in effort and you don't have to put in any effort. Which is better? Since this upaya is diametrically opposed to those, right? It is no need for them, no need for these. There's no need for karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga, because this means, when it says this means the Lord himself is the means. Accepting the Lord as the only means is completely diametrically opposed to accepting other means. So when we accept the Lord as the only means, why do we still have to accept those other means? We don't. We have to reject them. Sarvadhamam parityaja. They have to be given up. Since the upayas, apart the means, apart from this one, are accomplished by the Chaitana's activity, right? By his actions. They depend upon the Chaitana who performs the action to complete them. The upayas, or the means, are insentient and powerless, and without capacity, either to know what it is that the soul needs to do or to carry it out successfully. They all depend upon us, right? Therefore, in order to accomplish their results, attaining what the soul desires and getting rid of what he dislikes, right? Ishta, nishta, prapti, parihara, right? The getting what is he desires, right? What the soul desires, and getting rid of what he dislikes, right? Attaining what the soul desires and getting rid of what he dislikes. Those upayas, meaning karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga, right, depend upon the Lord, right, who possesses the omnipotence, right, or his omnipotence used to grant, in granting the results, the fruits of all such action, as declared in the Brahma Sutras. So in the Brahma Sutras, it mentions that you perform an action, the soul performs an action, either karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, or maybe some other action, right, which is not pious, right? It's even a sinful action like that. Whatever action the soul performs like that, the result will be given only by the Lord. The result has to be given by the Lord. The Lord is completely omnipotent. He's all powerful. He's the one who grants the results like that. So because he grants the results, why not just go to him, surrender to him, and he will grant the result? Why do we have to perform any action at all? Karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, or any other action, right? Which will result in that, in the Lord giving us the result, when the Lord can simply give us the result, right, by us surrendering to him, by us accepting our nature as his servant, as his slave, as his property. This upaya, the result is from him. Therefore, it is fitting. Okay, so this quotation is from, this is the sutra in Brahma Sutra 3.2.37, right? Palamata upatehe. Palamata upatehe, right, is the sutra. This refers to the Vishishtadvaita doctrine explained by Ramanuja in commenting on the sutra, that it is the Lord himself who supervises the cosmic process, granting the results of all karma, granting the results of all action, right? The Lord grants the results of all action. He's supervising everything that goes on, right? Therefore, everything, as we said in the Gita, there are the 5 forces of action, right? One of them is the Lord. We can't get away from that. So therefore, even if we perform karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga, we still rely on the Lord for the result. So why not just rely on the Lord for the result without thinking that we can do something, without thinking that tiny tinge of ahamkara or self-ego, that we think that we can be the causes. We're never the causes. Even if we are never ultimately the Lord grants all the fruits of karma yoga, jnana yoga, and even bhakti yoga. So those persons who perform those upayas, those methods, right, they also get the result by the Lord. So the result is from him, therefore it is fitting, right? Property, or accepting him as giving the result only, right? As an upaya, as Sriman Narayana, as the only means, that is fitting because it fits with It fits with what we know already. We already know the Lord grants the results of our actions. So we have to simply give up the idea that our actions are causing the results, and therefore just accept the Lord as giving the result. This upaya, meaning accepting the Lord, right, because of its supreme intelligence and omnipotence, right? Whereas we talked about these other upayas, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, as being insentient and therefore powerless. They're not sentient beings in themselves, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, right? The Lord himself is sentient like we are, but of course, to a much greater degree. And so therefore, this upaya, meaning the Lord himself, because of his supreme intelligence and omnipotence, is opposed to those others. It's a completely different thing. Property is a completely different process than Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. It's completely different. Therefore, it has no need. It has no need of the others. There is no need of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, or any path of effort like that. There's only a need of the Lord. After this, he shows how all these special qualities which facilitate resorting to the Lord shine forth in this word. In this word. What word are we talking about again? The word we're talking about is mam. In the word mam, all of these special qualities are included, right? So we already discussed this in Pribhyangachara, so let's see what is said here. 217. In this word mam, the special qualities of affection, vatsalya, lordliness, swamitva, affability, soshilya, and accessibility, solabhya, shine forth clearly. Nireka, praka, sikiraku. Okay, that's Manipavala. Without minding the defects of Arjuna, who had refrained from dharma because he thought it to be adharma, the Lord revealed to him the truths he needed, right? We talked about this before, that Arjuna thought that what he was going to do, fight the war, was adharma, was against dharma. Krishna had to explain to him how it is actually the actual dharma to fight the war. Thus, his affection or vatsalya was manifest by this, by his affection to Arjuna, by showing him where he was wrong. But by not only speaking of his supremacy many times, but actually making Arjuna to see it, the universal form, and to understand it by explaining all his great qualities, right? His supreme qualities in the 10th and 11th chapters, right? By not only speaking of his supremacy many times, but actually making Arjuna see it, he manifested his lordliness, his swamitva. So in the word mam, we have vatsalya, we have swamitva, right? When the Lord himself said, "Hey Krishna," when Arjuna himself said, "Hey Krishna, hey Yadava," this is a quotation from Bhagavad Gita 141, right? Krishna orders Arjuna orders Krishna in the beginning, Senayor Bayor Madhye, please take my chariot between the two armies. And I want to see what's going on, and I want to discuss with you. Like that. So he just says, "Hey Krishna, hey Yadava." So the Lord interacted with him, thus manifesting his affability, his sushilya. He made his holy form, which is supernatural or transcendental, into an object of vision, thus manifesting his accessibility. So he showed his four-handed form, and he also showed his universal form to Arjuna. He made himself totally accessible. Pila Lokacharya calls these special qualities, right? These special qualities that can be seen in this one word mam, right? This is such a small word out of the whole Charma Sloka. And we thought that we'd be spending a lot of time on some other words, but this word mam has got so much meaning in it. Just like when we saw in the Tiru mantra and the Dwaya mantra, the word Narayana, or even in the letter A, in the Omkara, in the Pranava, which means also the Lord. When we begin to start talking about the Lord, then the whole conversation gets expanded because of his Ananta Kalyana Gunas. He has such unlimited qualities, wonderful qualities. So here also, the word Mam indicates the Lord, like the Narayanaya in the Asakshara mantra and the two mentions of Narayana in the Dvaya mantra, Sriman Narayana Charanashanam Bhavati, Srimati Narayanaya Namaha, right? In all these other three cases, right? And also in the A and Omkara, in the Akara, Ukara, Makara, in the three letters of Omkara, right? In the Pranava, the letter A also means Narayana. In all of these cases, right, we have spent a lot of time explaining it. Why? Because the Lord has got these unlimited qualities. And so here, it's only natural that Pilalokacharya again mentions all these wonderful qualities of the Lord. What are they? Vatsalya, Swamitva, right? Sushilya, and Sulabhya. His affection for Arjuna, right? His lordliness, right? His affability, right? His accessibility. These are all wonderful qualities of the Lord. So again, Pilalokacharya and Manavalamani mention them. They mention them again in the context of the word Mam. Among all of these, accessibility is most necessary. Accessibility is most necessary, right? Which is why we were talking about the different forms of water and how they're accessible to a thirsty person, right? The water in the clouds is not accessible. The water underground is not accessible easily. The water in the flash flood is not accessible easily. Only the water in the palm of your hand or the water in a pool in front of you is accessible easily. And that is the deity form of the Lord. And that's why we talk about the Archa Avatar, either in the temple or in the house, as being most accessible. Among all these, accessibility, Sulabhya is most necessary. Therefore, he reveals not only the accessibility which results from his taking birth, the avatar, right? So for Arjuna had Krishna accessible in front of him because Krishna was there at the same time. He was there at the time of the flash flood of Krishna, and he was able to take advantage of that. So he could quench his thirst with Krishna was standing right there in front of him. But also how he manifests the supreme accessibility in the form of charioteer. That's another point, that Krishna was there, but he didn't act like God. He took the subservient position and became the servant of Arjuna, being his chauffeur, being his charioteer, driving the chariot of Arjuna. So that also made him accessible. Krishna could have been there with Arjuna as a co-king, as another Kshatriya, just standing there like that. It wouldn't mean that he would be as accessible as if Krishna took the subordinate position of being the charioteer. So Krishna took the subordinate position of being the charioteer, and that made him even more accessible to Arjuna. So, text number 218, the word Mam points to this form as the charioteer, this form as a charioteer. So this is another thing. So all of these things we're getting out of the word Mam. Standing with the whip in his hand, holding the reins, his holy hair grayed with the dust from the passing armies, right? His holy feet hanging down below the chariot, right? So when he says me, this points to his form as a charioteer, right? So there's so much meaning in the word me, in the word Mam here, in the verse. Charmasloka, Krishna Charmasloka. So here's another meaning. This is another meaning. So when he says me, this points to his form as a charioteer, standing with the whip held in his holy hand, in order to prod and drive the horses, the reins held tight in order to turn them from right and left and stop them. His holy hair made dusty from the dirt raised by the dust from the other armies, like that, standing without any covering on his holy head. And so the charioteer doesn't necessarily wear a crown, like a normal Kshatriya would wear a crown or a helmet like that. And with his holy feet, adorned with small bells hanging down beneath the chariot, as described by Nam Alwar in the following verse. And the quotation is, the tinkling feet of the Lord who drives the chariot. So this is a quotation. this gives Pillai Lokacharya Manavala Muni the chance to quote from Tiruvai Moli 3.6.10, which where Namalwa mentions the Lord as driving the chariot of Arjuna, but even then mentions his holy feet dangling down and his ankle bells tinkling. So thus, he has revealed the meaning of the third word. After this, he presents the fourth word, ekam. So before we go to ekam, let's first of all go and see what P.B. Nangacharya, how he finishes off and explains fully the meaning of the word mam. Go to P.B. Nangacharya and see. Okay, so we talked about all these four different qualities out of the unlimited qualities of the Lord, the Vatsalya, Swamitva, the Soshilya, and the Solabhya, out of which accessibility is the most important. And then he says, of all these qualities, it is Solabhyam which is most desired. Therefore, this Solabhyam, right, or easy accessibility, right, is stressed with the mam. So when we think of mam, if we forget all the other meanings of mam, just remember this: easy accessibility. When Krishna says me, he means easy accessibility. Surrender to the form of me that is the easily most accessible. That is the Archavatar, the deity form. So therefore, this Solabhya is stressed with the mam through the fact that not only he was born in this world, amazingly, he now stood as a charioteer. So in the actual, when Krishna actually spoke the Charma Sloka on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, of course, he was standing right there. And so for Arjuna, he was very accessible. He was his charioteer. He was most accessible. But for us, he's not standing in front of us saying the Charma Sloka. So therefore, for us, the Archavatar is most accessible. By saying mam or me, he is referring to himself in the role of charioteer with the stick that he holds in his divine hand to control the horses, and the small whip used to direct the horses, his divine hair on which dust due to the movement of the armies has settled because it was exposed, and the divine feet with its small anklets, right, ankle bells, right, which are dangling under the chariot in the way that the charioteer is sitting. So thus we come to the end of all the meanings brought out by Pillai Lokacharya and Manavala Mahamuni from the word mam. So I think it's a good place to ask if anybody has any questions about all these different meanings that come out of the word mam. But just as I said, it's really unlimited. We could go on forever speaking about the meanings coming from mam, from the word mam, because the word mam means Krishna, means Sriman Narayana, means the Supreme Lord. Just as we were discussing in the Tira mantra, Narayanaya, and in the Dvaya mantra, Narayana and Narayanaya. So that means that mam can have unlimited meanings. So, but he's emphasized Solabhya, the easy accessibility of the Lord.
Thank you, Swami. I think it's really, really clear, all the different descriptions of mam. I like how you cleared up the part about the difference between Arjuna and us. Obviously, Arjuna has the Vibhava in front of him, so therefore for him, that was the easiest, form of doing Sharanagati or Prapati, because he has the Lord directly in front of him. But for us, the most accessible form is the Archa. I don't know, homes, as simple as that, or going to the temple. So I think that was really, really clear and very, very interesting.
Right.
So
now, I don't think that there's a problem. I don't think I have a problem with, we have people in other Vaishnava Sampradaya, specifically Gaudiya Sampradaya, they say that the name of the Lord is more accessible. Because even, you have examples in Gaudiya Vaishnavism of people like Haridas Thakur or Rupa and Sanatan Goswami who were fallen Brahmins or born in a Muslim family and who could not perhaps go to the temple. In their house, perhaps they didn't have shalagams, right? You have these people. So they couldn't approach the deity form of the Lord. So then for them, the holy name of the Lord also can come on the tip of the tongue. So we're not saying that the holy name of the Lord is not also a form of the Lord that can be there can be there. But what is the difference? What is the difference between the deity form in your house, the deity form in the temple, and the holy name? One difference I would like to point out is why the holy name of the Lord may be less accessible than the deity, right? Because you may be thinking, well, the holy name of the Lord, I don't even need a temple. I don't even need a deity in the house. I can just chant the holy name of the Lord. Isn't this the most accessible? It depends upon our effort. Doesn't it depend upon our effort, the holy name of the Lord? Whereas the deity in the temple, does that depend upon our effort? The deity in the house, does that depend upon our effort? Of course, to worship the deity, right, which is archana, which is a part of bhakti yoga, that depends on effort, of course. But the deity himself, to surrender to the deity in the temple, in the house, doesn't require any effort. The chanting of the holy name requires some effort. It requires us to either meditate. There's three ways of chanting, right? We can chant in the mind, we can chant softly, upamamsu, or we can chant out loud. All of these require effort. The most effort is required for the chanting, mental chanting, right? So we have to control the mind. It means control the mind. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? The mind is more difficult to control than the wind. Can you control the wind? If you can't control the wind, then how can you control the mind? Like that. So mental chanting requires you to control the mind, to concentrate on the mantra within the mind, like that. Upamamsu and out loud chanting, that also requires some concentration, a little bit of concentration, even if it goes on automatically by a person who's just chanting the same name again and again and again and again, like that. Sometimes he can be thinking of other things while he's still chanting. Still, it requires some effort. Just like the autonomic functions in the body, our digestion, our breathing go on without us thinking about them. But still, there still is some effort, some energy expelled by the human being to breathe and to digest, right? So all of these things require our effort. As soon as we require our effort to do something, it involves a tinge of false ego. So if I say to somebody, yes, just chant, like that, that's the easiest way. No, it's not the easiest way, because it involves effort. It involves self-effort, and therefore it's not the easiest way, like that. So of course they have their idea, they have their doctrines that yes, chant the holy name, that's the easiest way. But they tell you that, but then they tell you no, but actually you have to chant with this mentality. It has to be pure chanting, and it has to be done. You have to do it so many times, and it has to be done until the end of your life. It has to be blah, 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 blah. So first of all, they tell you it's a very simple, easy, and sublime. It's the most easy, accessible way to get in touch with God. But then they start adding when you add up all the rules and regulations, eventually it doesn't become that easy. Just like I explained, to actually chant purely involves controlling the mind, involves so many things like that. So, although Sri Chaitanya has mentioned in his Shikshastika, he says, Smaranena Kalaha, to remember the Lord requires no effort. No effort. Kalaha means rules. There's no rules and regulations for chanting. And you'll hear this. People say, there's no rules and regulations in chanting, right? And then they'll start telling you about there's 10 offenses, and you have to chant this much, and you have to chant this every day, and you have to chant this and you have to think of God at the time of death, and you have to do all these things. These are all rules, like that. So although it is said that it's easy, it is said that there's no rules. It still requires effort. So like that. So even if we say, let's say, okay, there's no rules. Let's say there's absolutely no rules. We know there are rules. Okay. But let's say there's no rules. Okay, there's no rules. So then, I can chant once, or I can chant many times. I can chant thinking of something else or not thinking of something else. There's no rules. I can just chant and I'll be saved, right? Like Ajamil in the Bhagavatam. Ajamil, he chanted Narayana. He wasn't even thinking of God. He was just thinking of his son, like that, at the time of death. So that doesn't count. No, that counts. That counts. The Vishnu Dutas came there. They said that counts, right? Even though he wasn't thinking of God, he was thinking of his son. That still counts as remembrance of God at the time of death. So they said, we've come to take you to moksha, but you're not quite finished. You're not quite finished. even that effort that you made, that unconscious effort to call your son, even that effort, right? Still, you have to continue on until you're completely pure like that. So it involves effort. Whenever we talk about chanting, it involves effort like that. Accepting the Lord as surrendering to the Lord and accepting him as the one who is going to save us, that involves no effort. That involves a mentality like that. And it doesn't have to be, it has to be momentary. It doesn't have to be lifelong. It doesn't have to be at the time of death. We know that from the other charma slokas, right? Rama says, Sakrideva. Sakrideva means once only. He doesn't say every day, 16 rounds, and there are these rules and regulations, there's 10 offenses, and there's all these other principles and things that you have to follow and everything like that. And on the Codicy, it has to be even different. He doesn't say that. He says once only. Rama says once only. Once only come to the realization that I am yours, Tavasmi. And what does Varaha say? He backs that up. He says, yeah, once only. If you thought about, if you did this when you were healthy, then when you're in a coma, when you're lying there and you're dying in your coma like that, I'll think of you because you have made me the upaya. You have made me the means. And so I'm the means. So I'm going to appear at the time of your death and I'm going to take care of everything. Don't worry about it. Right? Don't worry about it. All those people standing around the dying person's bed, putting up pictures of God and playing tapes of kirtans and feeding me prasadam and Ganges water and putting tulsi leaves on my head like that. All of that is unnecessary. Dying in a holy place, even. Peri Nambi, the Acharya of Ramanuja, was dying. He was on the way back from Tanjore. He was dragged to Tanjore along with Kurt Alwar, who was impersonating Ramanuja at the time. Ramanuja escaped from the Shaivite king, this Krimikanta Chola, right, of Tanjore, who sent the armies there to capture Ramanuja because he wanted Ramanuja to give up his, to say that Shiva was greater than Vishnu. Ramanuja wouldn't do that, so he left like that. Kuresh took his place, and Kuresh and Peri Nambi or Mahapurna, Ramanuja's guru, and as an old man, and his daughter, right, Peri Nambi's daughter, they were all taken to the king, and the king said, "I'm going to demand that you put out a public statement that Shiva is supreme over Vishnu," and they wouldn't do it like that. So he had their eyes burned out. He had them blinded. They were blinded. Peri Nambi was an old man. Mahapurna was an old man at that time, very old. He couldn't survive that. So on his way back to Sri Rangam, after being blinded by the king, the Shaivite king, Peri Nambi said, I'm going to die. The others, Kuradalwan and his daughter, said to him, Mahapurna, father, please wait. Please don't pass away here on the way to Sri Rangam. Let us get you back to the holy place of Sri Rangam, which is Bhuloka Vaikuntham. We get you back to the holy Dham in Sri Rangam. When you die in the holy Dham, you will attain liberation like that. He said, no, I don't want people to think that I have to go to Sri Rangam to die. I don't want people to think that I have to be in Vrindavan, I have to be in Mathura, I have to be in the holy place to die. I don't have to be thinking of holy things when I die. I don't have to do any of those things. Those things are all part of bhakti yoga. Those things are not part of property, right? I am completely and utterly dependent upon the Lord, and therefore any place that I die, in any condition that I die, I will attain liberation because the Lord is the one in charge of what I attain. That is completely and utterly understood by the Vrahacharma Sloka, and even the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, even though they don't know about the Vrahacharma Sloka, but Valadev Vidyabhushana, their Acharya, has written in his commentary on Vishnu Sahasranama, he has given from the Varaha Purana a very similar sloka, like this Vrahacharma Sloka, which says exactly the same thing. So it cannot be denied even by them, although it's not emphasized by them. So this is not denied by the other Vaishnavas. It's just not emphasized by them. They emphasize the paths of self-effort. like Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and especially Bhakti Yoga. They emphasize those things. We do not at all emphasize those things. As we've seen, the Tengalaya Acharyas are actually against those things. We say that the dharmas that have to be, the so-called dharmas that have to be given up are actually these things: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. They have to be given up. We're not saying give up chanting. We're not saying give up doing deity worship. We're not saying give up devotional acts or study of the scriptures, or even working and giving the fruits to holy causes. We're not saying that. We're saying give up the mentality, the thinking that our efforts are going to save us. Give up that mentality, because that is the mentality which keeps us in the material world. That is called ahankara and mamakara, and even a slight tinge of it is like a drop of poison in a glass of nectar. If I offer you the nectar of immortality, of liberation, but I say, I have 2 glasses here of nectar, of immortality, of liberation. Which one will you drink? Will you drink the one which has a drop of poison in it, or will you drink the one without, which is completely pure? The one which is completely pure, the only completely pure thing is the Lord himself. Absolutely 100% safe and effective. These other things appear to be nectar. They appear to be an easy way. But in fact, because they have that drop of poison there, they have to be rejected. That is the understanding of the Tenacharya Sampradaya, like that. Other people will say, okay, there may be a little bitterness in that drink, but I can still take it. I can still take it down. So the point here being made very clearly is that we don't accept any of these other means as actual means. We accept only the Lord as the proper means. So I think we can leave it here, right? Unless there's any other comments or questions.
That's fine. I was also thinking about Sharanagati of Draupadi, that she also just did Sharanagati to the Naam, isn't it? She said Govinda, Govinda. But she did it once only, and she obviously only when she realized that the Lord is the only shelter, the only one that can save her. But she did it to the Naam. So that was a nice example of her doing it to the Naam.
We're not against the holy name. We're not against that. We're not against approaching the holy
it's just
name.
Realization.
She was in the middle of an assembly. She had, look, Arjuna was in the battlefield. When Krishna said, surrender unto me, he couldn't run out and go to a temple. Right? Oh, excuse me, Krishna, I'm just going to go to a temple and surrender to your deity. No, that's not the point. Krishna was most accessible right in front of him as his charioteer. So that's where he surrendered, right? So Draupadi, Krishna was in Dwarka. She was during the flash flood, during the avatar of Krishna. She was there. But she couldn't say, hang on, don't pull my sari off right now. Just wait for me to come back from Dwarka. I'm going to Dwarka to surrender to Krishna, and then you can pull as much as you like on the sari. No, it's not like that. She had no deity with her. She had no, the super soul again is very difficult to approach like that, like digging a well for water. So what did she do? The holy name is accessible. Is in that case, the holy name was more accessible. And so that's a good point. So that's a very good point. And so she chanted the holy name of the Lord, and the name Govinda saved her. And what is the point given in Sri Vachanabhushana and Mumuksupadi about that point? The name Govinda, right? The name Govinda, which is the name of Lord Krishna, saved her. Right? Now, the name Narayana is so much greater than the name Govinda, right? For what reason? We discussed this before, that there are 3 Vyapaka names, 3 names that deal with the all-pervasiveness of the Lord. They are Vishnu, Vasudeva, and Narayana, right? And they all come in the Narayana Gayatri. Narayanaya vidmahe, Vasudevaya dhimahi, tanno Vishnu prachodayat, right? So Vasudeva meaning God pervading from outside, Vishnu, God pervading from inside, and Narayana meaning both. So Narayana, out of the three Vyapaka mantras names, the three Vyapaka names of the Lord, which deal with all its all pervasiveness, right? Narayana is the greatest name. So these other names like Achyuta and Govinda and Keshava and whatever, these are all subsidiary names. They're also names. They're also names of the Supreme Lord. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. So there are many, many names of the Lord, and in each one of them there is great power. There's the greatest power, right? So we can't say, if we look at different avatars and things of different names of the Lord, we equate them all like that. So, okay, the name Govinda is great, the name Achyuta is great, the name Keshava is great. The name Narayana, though, however, is special. The three names, Narayana, Vasudeva, Vishnu, they're all special. Out of those, the most special is Narayana, for the reasons we've understood by reading Mumuksupadi, the Tira mantra and the Dvaya mantra, explaining. In the Charma Sloka, we don't have the word Narayana. What do we have in the word in the Charma Sloka instead of Narayana? We have Mom. We have me. Right? So it means we have to find the meaning, the word Narayana in the word Mom. So we've just described the word Mom. We found the meaning of the word Mom to be Narayana. So Draupadi she took shelter of Krishna. That also works. So we're not saying to people, you can't surrender to Narasimha, you can't surrender to Rama, you can't surrender to Krishna, that you only have to surrender to Narayana. You can surrender to any of them, and it all works. Draupadi's surrender was to the Govinda Nama. It worked like that. It'll be successful, right? But we are pointing out the superiority of the terminology Narayana. We're just pointing that out. So if Draupadi could be saved by remembering Govinda Nama, how much more are we going to be saved by remembering Narayana Nama, by remembering the Astakshara mantra, by remembering the Dvaya mantra, by remembering this Charma Sloka, by remembering the one word Mam, or even the one syllable Ah, as long as we understand the meaning behind these things. What is the meaning of Govinda? What is the meaning of Narayana? What is the meaning of Vishnu and Vasudeva? What is the meaning of Mam? What is the meaning of the letter Ah? When we speak, practically speaking, when we talk, Ah, the sound Ah comes out of our mouth thousands and millions of times a day. If we can realize the meaning of that, and if we can surrender to the personality behind the meaning of that syllable, right? Just like Draupadi did with Govinda or somebody else with Narayana, then so it's possible even to chant Omkara, and it's possible even to chant just the letter Ah or Mam, and to understand all these meanings. So yes, it's possible, the name of God, it's possible to surrender to the name of God. The example right there is Draupadi. And it doesn't have to be the name Narayana. It can be Rama, it can be Govinda, it can be any of these names like that. We are just pointing out the highest thing, and we're giving reasons why we accept it as the highest thing. But if other people want to surrender to the Nama, the Hari Nama, the Hare Krishna mantra or the Hare Rama mantra, whatever it is, if they want to surrender to that, that's fine. We don't have any problem with that. If you're completely surrendered to that, like that. We're just pointing out that it involves your effort. It does involve your effort. If you can tell me how to chant Harinama without any self-effort, if you can tell me how to do that, then I'll accept it as being equal to property.
I was just thinking, it's just so subtle that it's just simply a different consciousness. It's just simply changing, getting rid of the ahankara. Because even if you do, like Draupadi did, and then Sharanagati, the Nama, and then yes, you've done Sharanagati and that's done, and it's only once. And then after that, just like how we do Kenkaryam to the Archa Vigraha, one does Kenkarya to the Nama and the same way of chanting it, but you're not doing it for any other thing except Kenkaryam, except service. That's it. So those who if they change that mood, but they're not chanting that, oh, I'm chanting because by this I'm going to save myself. It's just that difference. It's just that switching off the switch of thinking that you are doing it. So that's just thinking about, all of this is just the realizations. And, I accept totally everything you're saying, but from what you're saying, I just get different realizations. So that's why I'm just telling you what my thoughts are with respect to that.
Sure.
And the other thing that
so a Gaudiya Acharya, he can say, he can say, chant Hare Krishna, and he has the disciple chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, like that. That's it. Finished. Everything is finished now. You chanted Hare Krishna. Now you're completely freed from everything, like that. You surrendered to Krishna. You're completely freed, like that. Then the question might be, why does he then ask the disciple to continue chanting every day, like that? That continued chanting every day would be like the chanting that we do of Tira mantra or Astakshara mantra or Vaya mantra, whatever it is, like that. It's a remembrance. It's not a repeat of property. If a Gaudiya Vaishnava thinks like that, if he thinks I've already surrendered to the Lord, the Lord is my savior and I'm saved. If he thinks like that, then that is property. That is property. And it's just another way of saying property. And if he thinks that I am chanting today, I'm just chanting, I'm just remembering, I'm enjoying chanting, and I'm just remembering my surrender to the Lord. This chanting is just the remembrance of that. It's not a repetition. It's not a second surrender. But that's not usually what they say. What they usually say is we have to surrender every day for the rest of our lives, and at the time of death, one has to surrender. The surrender has to be constant and ongoing, but that's not what Rama says. Rama doesn't say that. He says, Sakrit Eva. Sakrit Eva means once only. Once only. Once only is enough, like that. So we have faith that once only is enough. It doesn't mean that we don't chant a Sakshara mantra. They have faith that once only is not enough.
Exactly. And that's where it becomes a real task when you have that mood. But the minute you change the mood, that okay, I don't have to chant to get anything now because I've already attained it just by once chanting that I've surrendered to the Naam of God, because the Naam is also a sonic form of God. And now I'm just doing seva, then it becomes sweet. Whereas, if you're doing it that I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, then it becomes a real task. And that's where the effort
but see,
is.
Also the point here is that people will make the argument, and Vedanta Deshika also makes this argument, that even the Lord say Tavasmi, he says, Sakrit Eva, do it once, like that. That means I have to do it once. I actually have to do it once. If you don't do it, you haven't done it. You've done it 0 times. You have to do it actually 1 time. So if you do it 1 time, that's an action. That's a self-initiated action. That's what Vedanta Deshika says. The Tengalaya Acharyas say no. When the Lord says once only, say, I am yours, right? What he's saying is it's not that he's saying that you have to make an effort to do this, right? It's not an effort. It's not a once only effort. It's simply a realization. The 10 acharyas, the southern acharyas are saying, this is not an effort. This is not even a once only effort. This is simply a realization of fact. The fact is that you are the property of the Lord. Just realize that once, or even don't realize it. Doesn't matter. Whether the cell phone realizes it or not, it is my property. So I don't say to the cell phone, just once only realize that you're my property. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. If the cell phone was sentient, it would know that it's my property, like that. It's only by Maya and Agyana, ignorance in this world, that we think that we're our own property, or we think that we belong to a particular nation or family, but or gender or caste or color. We think, or race. We think that we belong to these different things. We belong, and ultimately we think we belong to ourselves, that we are the master of ourselves, at least, right? No, we're the property of the Lord. That is the concept. We're the property of the Lord. Once we understand that, everything's finished. That doesn't involve effort. There's no effort. The cell phone puts out no effort to think that it's my property. It is my property. It is my property, and that's it. So it's not an effort. So the Tenacharyas, the Tengalais and the Wadagalais disagree on this. The Wadagalais say there is a slight effort. The Tengalai, even you talked, Tiran Ryan was saying, Vedanta Deshika says you have to call out. You're drowning. You're completely helpless in this material world. You have to ask the Lord to be saved. If you want to be saved, you have to ask the Lord to be saved. Otherwise, he won't save you. Right? Otherwise, the point Vedanta Deshika makes is that if you didn't have to ask the Lord to be saved, then he would save everybody. Nobody's asking to be saved, all in this material world. So then why doesn't the Lord just save everybody? But the point is, if we take that, again, that analogy of the drowning man, the lifeguard is watching. The Lord is always watching. There are two birds in the tree. There's one bird is watching the other bird, is always watching, is always waiting for a chance to have an excuse to save the other. The lifeguard is waiting for it. That's his job. God's job is to watch you and to wait for an excuse to save you. He's just waiting for an excuse to save you, like that. He'll take any excuse to save you, and he may just save you out of his own free will. He's completely independent. He can save Namalwar. What did Namalwar do to be saved? He was just saved by the Lord. We have nothing is written there that Namalwar was saved by any cause or any reason like that. But the Lord saved him. So the lifeguard can save you, right? Even you don't yell out for help, the lifeguard sees that you need help. He sees that you want. This whole material world, this whole Leela here is set up by the Lord to save us, so that he can show that he, in so many different ways, to save us. He enjoys doing that, saving us like that. That's why he does it like that. So we don't have to make any effort whatsoever. He will see that we're drowning, and he will see what we need, and he will carry what we lack. He will support us and carry what we lack.
And
so even if we
and he ultimately saves you once you give up the mamakara and the hankara, which means also giving up, just going limp and giving up and letting go. And even if you don't let go, he will still save you. But it's much easier to save you when you just give up the mamakara and the hankara.
Everything's easy. Everything's easy for him. He's completely omnipotent. He's completely powerful. Everything's easy for him, like that. It's like there's no contest. Okay, so even if you go kicking and screaming to Vaikuntha, right, against it, right, he's going to take you, right. Well, look at Shishupal. Shishupal cursed out Krishna 100 times, like that. Krishna still took him to moksha. Putana came and tried to kill Krishna. These demons came and tried to kill Krishna. Krishna still took him to moksha, like that. He took it as an excuse. Oh, look, she's come as a mother to me, or this person's come as this, this person's coming this for this reason, like that. Oh, I'll just save him, like that. I don't care what their ulterior motives are. I'll just save him anyway. Like that. Let's take it. What's the best I can think that this person is doing, right? She's approaching me like a mother. Forget about the poison. I'll just save her, like that. So Krishna always sees, Srimad Narayana sees our good intentions, even if we have no good intentions. He sees the good in us, even if there's no good in us. So it's and this process is perfect. It's what was it said there? Siddhopaya. It's already perfect. It's 100% safe and sure and perfect system, like that. There's no chance of failure at all.
There's one very much side point. This is a very side point that is not related to this directly, but it's something that you mentioned in the beginning about the Madhvas, that I just thought was also interesting, that not only do they worship all these different devas, and they say that they worship the Antaryami of the devas, which leads me to think is there a purpose of still worshiping the Antaryami in that particular form? Is it obviously that they're going for some benefit? But not only do they do that, but even Udupi Krishna, they dress as devas. I've seen that they dress Udupi Krishna as Durga. I don't know if you have ever seen like that.
Yeah. Every Friday, Krishna, Udupi Krishna is dressed as a female. So either Lakshmi or Devi or whatever. See, more or less, like if the difference between Smartas and Madhvas is very close, actually, in some senses, because the Smartas will worship all these different devatas, and the Madhvas will also worship them. And if you talk to a Madhva, of course, they accept that the Supreme Lord is Narayana, is Krishna. But at the same time, they're not past seeing Krishna dressed up as a devata in some way, like that. We also have in Sri Vaishnavism, we also have this Mohini Alankar, when Nam Alwar or even Lord Nam Nam Perumal, the Lord, is dressed up as Lakshmi. That's also possible, like that. But that's a completely different thing. We're not considering him to become some devata, like that. And exactly what the mentality is of the Madhvas in dressing Krishna in this way, I think it's just they have certain rules and regulations in the way that they worship their deity there. For instance, they can dress him as anything pretty much, right? Except they don't cover the face, so they never dress him as Narasimha, because Narasimha would mean changing the face to a lion type face, and they don't do that. But apart from that, they every Friday he appears in a female form, and other days they have other. I've seen him dressed up as a Yakshagana dancer. They have a certain type of, which is like Kathakali. It's a type of South Indian dance. In southern Karnataka and Kerala, they do this. In southern Karnataka, especially, they do a thing called Yakshagana type of dance. If you haven't seen it, you can look it up. Anyway, so what the Madhvas do, whatever. We're not against what other Vaishnavas do. Let's put it that way. We're not against what other Vaishnavas do. They have their reasons for doing it. They have their doctrines and they have their practices, like that. The ultimate is that all of these practices, everybody's actually worshiping Sriman Narayana. They have different ways of doing it, like that. That it's the mentality is most refined in the Tengalai Sri Vaishnava system. That is most refined is the mentality of the person and what he thinks and how he does it. Now, externally from the outside, people may look and they may see a Smarta, Madhva, a Sri Vaishnava, Tengalai, Wadagalai. It may look all the same the way they're worshipping the Lord, but it's not, because what's happening inside is different. That's why externals are less important and internals are much more important. So when we get the right mentality right, when we get the right understanding right, then we really understand, and then we've made it, like that. When the mentality isn't right, the externals may appear to be right, like that, but the doctrines are not. I mean, we don't understand exactly what the internals are. That's why we very much emphasize understanding in detail the doctrines, like that, rather than just performing external acts, right? Because anybody can worship a deity or worship even Vishnu, even Narayana, even the Smartas. There are Smartas who worship Narayana, like that. The mentality, however, of the Smarta is he's worshiping Narayana. He thinks that he is Narayana. The mentality of these other Vaishnava sects or even the Wadagalais is that they are performing the worship of Narayana. Right? Even the Wadagalais have to again and again and again say the Sattvika Tyaga mantras just to emphasize to themselves that the Lord is working through them just to worship himself, to get himself worshipped in the form of the deity. So they have to continue, but it's in Tengalai philosophy, right, that we understand this. So perhaps this is one of the reasons why we don't always chant this. Not that there's anything wrong with it, the Sattvika Tyaga. It's there in Ramanuja's Nitya, and if people want to learn it and practice it, they can learn it and practice it. It's not It's not wrong. But the constant remembrance of that, we should understand it. We should imbibe that understanding as Tengalais. Whereas as Wadagalais, perhaps they still think that there's some certain amount of self-effort involved. Yeah. So anyway, internals are more important than externals, and therefore we should try to understand the internals. Today we've understood the internal meanings of mam, and we could go on forever speaking about mam. But next time we'll take up the next word, which is ekam. Ekam, which means one or only. And so that will also be very interesting discussion.
Thank you. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
Jai Shri Narayana.
Jai Shri Narayana.